Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, His Highness the Emir receives a message from President of the European Commission praising the leading role of His Highness for relief of the Syrian people. With new strategy and battle master plans, Iraqi forces are moving forward to liberate other cities from the so-called Daesh in less populated areas. Evacuation operations for nationals of different countries continue as the airstrikes intensify in Yemen. And a bomb blast next to a checkpoint on a bridge in Cairo kills an Egyptian policeman and injures several people. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received a telephone call from His Royal Highness Prince Khalifa bin Salman Al Khalifa, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain, during which bilateral relations were reviewed as well as the current events on the regional and international arenas. His Royal Highness the Prime Minister of Bahrain wished His Highness the Emir all the best of health and strength. His Highness the Emir replied by thanking him for his telephone call, which reflected the historic, strong and distinct relations between the two countries and their peoples. His Highness wished him all the best of health and complete prosperity and advancement for the Kingdom of Bahrain and its honourable people under the prudent leadership of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received a message from His Excellency Jean-Claude Juncker, President of the European Commission, in which he highly appreciated the continuous efforts of His Highness the Emir to rally support for the relief of the Syrian people. The EU Commission President also praised the leading role played by His Highness the Emir for hosting conferences of donors to support the humanitarian conditions in Syria, as well as for the generous donations contributed by the State of Kuwait, as declared by His Highness the Emir, to ease the suffering of the Syrian people. He also wished His Highness all the best of health. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Islam Karimov, on the occasion of his re-election as President for another term. His Highness expressed hope that the relations between the State of Kuwait and the Republic of Uzbekistan would witness further development. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Islam Karimov, on the occasion of his re-election as President for another term. His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable of congratulations. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah sent a cable of condolences to His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta of the Republic of Kenya on the victims of the attack on Garissa University in Kenya, in which scores of students were killed or wounded. His Highness expressed Kuwait's full condemnation of such terrorist acts against innocent people. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah sent a cable of condolences to His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta of the Republic of Kenya on the victims of the attack on Garissa University in Kenya. His Highness Sheikh Jaber Al Mbarak Al Hamad Al Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable of condolences. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah received His Excellency the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince then received His Excellency the National Assembly Speaker Marzouk Ali Al Ghanem, who was accompanied by members of the delegation to the International Parliamentary Union Conference, which convened in the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Assembly members Faisal Fahad Al-Shaya, Dr. Oda Ruwai'i, Saleh Ashur, Khalil Abdullah, Saif Al-Azmi and National Assembly Secretary General Allam Al-Kandari. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince also received His Excellency the Acting Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Sabah Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince later received His Excellency the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Interior Sheikh Mohammed Al Khalid Al Hamad Al Sabah. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince then received His Excellency the Deputy Premier and Minister of Defence Sheikh Khalid Al Jarrah Al Sabah. His Highness the Deputy Emir and Crown Prince also received at Seif Palace today His Excellency the Minister of Information and Minister of State for Youth Affairs Sheikh Salman Sabah Hissam Al Sabah and His Excellency the Minister of State for Cabinet Affairs Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah Mubarak Al Sabah. With new strategy proposals and battle master plans initiated, Iraqi forces are moving forward to liberate other cities from the so-called Daesh in less populated areas. More in this report by Firas Ad-Dulaimi.
New strategy initiated, new proposals and battle master plans started as the Iraqi forces are moving forward to liberate other cities, embracing the final stages to siege the so-called Daesh in less populated areas, avoiding any civilian casualties and preserving cities from destruction.
The operation task to retake the invaded portions of the lands from Daesh and other terrorist groups is on, and what was achieved by the Defense Ministry is a true fact.
Beji, the next target that will hold the so-called Daesh and other terrorist groups more than ever, since the government officials have now announced their strategy toward this place. Iraqi army and its formations know well the terrain of this area.
The armed forces have fulfilled their promise and extended victory, backed up by the public mass army and the tribal volunteers from West, and they have all achieved great victory and glory that will prevail, adorned with martyrdom and heroism.
The importance derived from deploying the Iraqi army concentration upon this place is age to the oil interests, as the insurgents have always sought financial resources, same as Mosul, when exporting illegally oil barrels and establishing commercial channels, which have been later on banned by the international community.
There is mutual cooperation between Joint Commanding Center and the commanding of Salahuddin and Samarra, and of course our units and our troops there.
Significantly, the Defense Ministry officials are meeting on zero-hour point. The government won't stop the operations against the so-called Daesh until it liberates all the cities from the terrorists. All of the government officials contend that rope of aid should be cut down from Daesh. No more petrol or financial support from any neighbor countries to end the terrorism arena once and for all. Walid Altai, Kuwait TV, Baghdad.
The Jordanian Ministry of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs announced that a group of 51 Jordanians have been evacuated from Yemen by land. The ministry said in a statement that the evacuees arrived earlier in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia en route to Jordan, noting that a total of 100 Jordanian nationals left Yemen in the last couple of days. The statement added that the Jordanian competent authorities, including the ministry's operations centre and the embassy in Sana'a, will continue working with their Saudi peers to ensure safe evacuation of the rest of the Jordanians from Yemen. Meanwhile, an Indian naval ship, the INS Mumbai, reached Djibouti safely today with a total of 440 people, including Indians and nationals of 17 other countries on board, who were evacuated from the Yemeni port of Aden amid heavy shelling. This comes as the airstrikes continued for the 11th day, as fighting on the ground between Houthis and Yemeni forces also intensified. An explosion hit a bridge near an upscale neighbourhood in central Cairo today, killing at least one person and wounding another. Egypt is facing an insurgency based in North Sinai that has killed hundreds of soldiers and police following mass protests against the previous regime's rule. Meanwhile, the military has launched security campaigns, arrested suspects and demolished houses belonging to militants, including those facilitating tunnels leading to the Gaza Strip. Last week, a militant group known as Agnad Misr claimed responsibility for a bombing in front of Cairo University that wounded 8 people, including 4 police officers. Another 2 bombs exploded Saturday, also nearby in Giza, causing no casualties. Palestinians are fighting back against the so-called Daesh in Yarmouk Palestinian refugee camp in the Syrian capital Damascus after the group took control of most of the camp earlier. Commander of Palestinian groups which used to oppose Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime said there are more than 2,000 armed Palestinians fighting inside the camp, while the total number of the so-called Daesh fighters is about 800 or 900. Their advantage in numbers, combined with heavy artillery support provided by government forces, enabled the Palestinians to make some gains against the group on Friday. According to reports, Yarmouk was once a thriving neighborhood home to 160,000 Palestinians, descendants of refugees from conflicts in the Middle East. However, at most 18,000 residents are estimated to remain in the camp after many fled the fighting. Syrian rebels withdrew from the camp in February of 2014 under a deal that left only Palestinian anti-regime groups inside. Six people were killed and dozens injured after a suicide bomber detonated a car at Sadada checkpoint in Libya's northwestern city of Misrata. Security forces rushed to the site and sealed off the area as bodies and the injured were transferred to a local hospital. Several of the so-called Daesh groups in Libya have claimed responsibility for the attack. In a separate incident, government warplanes carried out airstrikes on Tripoli's outskirts, targeting Libya Dawn positions. There were no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Rescue workers in Chile said the death toll from last week's floods rose to 25 and could increase further. There is growing concern for the 101 people still missing after last week's flash floods and mudslides in the Atacama region, which includes the world's driest desert. Chile's emergency services said about 30,000 people have been affected by the floods, the worst in the Atacama region in 80 years. Meanwhile, President Michelle Bachelet visited the area, promising to provide aid to help recovery efforts. The third humanitarian pledging conference for Syria brought together hundreds of international representatives from governments, UN agency heads and NGO organizations. Following the conclusion of the conference, many officials were eager to voice their gratitude for His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmed al-Jaber al-Sabah, for hosting the event. Our reporter Badriya Saleh brings us this report.
The third humanitarian pledging conference for Syria brought together hundreds of governmental, UN and NGO agencies eager to voice their support for a solution to the fast-growing need of the victims of the conflict. Demand for urgent need of help has increased dramatically in and outside of the country, but visiting representatives were hopeful that the Kuwait 3 conference pledges will make a difference.
I think we're on our way to raising more funds than ever before, and that is very good for my personal morale, because I don't want to live in a world where we all grow tired of crises and lose interest and then abandon the children of Syria and abandon the neighbors of Syria who are trying to do so much to help. And so I think the fact that this is so well attended, it's being taken seriously by so many governments, and that so many of us have been inspired by the Kuwaiti example, it gives me some hope.
Together, the international community, Kuwait plus other countries in the region, plus other countries from outside the region, provide a very important resource support to the UN, to international NGOs, and to local NGOs in the interest of solidarity with the people in Syria and with the Syrian refugees who are living in the neighboring countries. But more importantly, this is the right thing to do, for humanity.
Local production of medicines have been reduced by 70% and many life-saving treatments are not available. 55% of public hospitals are partially functioning or completely out of service. According to data collected by UNHCR, Jordan is hosting 14 million Syrians, of whom 626,000 are registered. 51.6% of registered Syrian refugees are between the ages of 0 and 17 years, and 3.5% are above 50.
In the Middle East, in the world, there's a lot of problems. So how to deal with these problems? International community should not try to cooperate each other support each other. And we need that efforts from every country. So that is our purpose, to support such kind of efforts, to help the people, to encourage the people and the countries to the peace process. That's, I think, that is a right direction.
I think it's also to put Syria in the context of a world that's pretty much in disarray right now. There's so many conflicts, all the way from the Atlantic Ocean eastward to Asia. You've got Syria, Iraq, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Libya, Yemen is a problem now. You have the Boko Haram in Nigeria in the neighborhood, and you have Ebola in West Africa. So it's a lot for the humanitarian community and the donors to do, but it has to be done.
Funds promised at the third conference nearly equal the combined total of $3.9 billion pledged at the previous two. Recipient agencies are now waiting to learn how the funds will be distributed.
Bayan Palestine Badriya Saleh reporting for the English News.
The Minister of Information and Minister of State for Youth Affairs, Sheikh Salman Sabah Sam Mahmoud al-Sabah, visited Failaka Island in an inspection tour for the nominated site on the World Heritage List. Failaka Island is a Kuwaiti island in the Arabian Gulf and is 20 kilometers off the coast of Kuwait City. Nurhan Al-Elfi was there and brought us this report.
Minister of Information and the Minister of State for Youth Affairs, Sheikh Salman Sabah Salim Al-Hamoud al-Sabah, visited Failaka Island on Saturday morning in an inspection tour for the nominated sites on the World Heritage List.
Visit a lot of facilities here run by different expeditions from all over the world, the Danish, Georgian, and other expeditions under the umbrella of the National Council for Arts and Music and Letters, where we do our most to enhance our facilities. Kuwait history, very old history, more than 7,000 years, and we have a very rich civilizations run and we're here in Kuwait, where we'd like to focus on them in Failaka, in Sabbiya and other places. Our intention in the coming future is to concentrate on the cultural tourism.
The minister also discussed with various archaeological exploration teams how the island was an important waterway for active commercial movements.
I think this is one of the best port I ever seen, which is the Failaka. It has a huge potential, and I'm happy to say that Georgian National Museum works here already 5 years. There are very interesting finds starting from early Bronze Age, a few thousand years ago up to Islamic period. And what is important that Kuwaiti archaeology is developing, and I'm sure the Failaka will be a place where many people would like to come and to see these archaeological finds.
Sheikh Salman affirmed that Failaka contains a legacy of humanity and historical civilization, spanned more than 7,000 years to be a guide for Kuwait civilization and humanitarian.
With this visit today, of course, we go around in the history from the 2nd millennium BC until the 2nd century BC about the civilization exists in this area. Of course, if we drive around the island, there is a lot of archaeological sites. It goes back to Sasanian, it goes back to Christian, it goes back to Islamic period, but it is a little bit far away from here.
Also, the minister explored that the primary objective of maintaining these monuments is to present them to the community, to give a clear message about Kuwaiti's keenness in humanitarian heritage and Kuwaiti's support for all global efforts to preserve this heritage, as it represents the human value that must be preserved for future generations.
The island is a perfect combination of rich history and natural beauty, so if you feel like escaping the hustle-bustle of Kuwait, try to visit Failaka. From Failaka Island, I am Nurhan Al-Alfi reporting for the English News.
The Kuwait Stock Exchange closed today's session on mixed boards as the weighted index gained 0.22 points. The price index lost 14.8 points, while the Kuwait 15 index gained 2.61 points. The number of trades amounted to 3,992 transactions worth 11 million Kuwaiti dinars, with 150 million shares changing hands. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. His Highness the Emir receives a message from the President of the European Commission praising the leading role of His Highness for relief of the Syrian people. With new strategy and battle master plans, Iraqi forces are moving forward to liberate other cities from the so-called Daesh in less populated areas. Evacuation operations for nationals of different countries continue as the airstrikes intensify in Yemen. And a bomb blast next to a checkpoint on a bridge in Cairo kills an Egyptian policeman and injures several more people. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.